The wind clawed at the wooden shutters like a thief in the night, and the roof of Harlan Boone's ranch groaned under the weight of sleet and silence. It was the kind of cold that got into a man's bones and whispered old regrets back to life. Harlan stirred from the cot by the fireplace, the faint clink of metal catching his ear. Not horses, not coyotes, something lighter, softer. He pulled his coat over Long John's and lit a lantern. The rifle leaned ready by the door. It always was. Harlan had lived alone 12 years now, and in those years he'd learned that nothing good came uninvited after dark. Outside, the wind howled across the barren plains, sweeping snow in sideways curtains. He trudged toward the barn, each step crunching in the half-frozen mud. A dull flicker of movement behind the hay bales caught the lantern's light. Harlan cocked the rifle. "Who's there?" His voice cracked like a whip in the dark. No answer, just a sharp gasp, then the tiniest whimper. He stepped forward. There, huddled against the back wall of the barn beneath a threadbare blanket, were 4 figures, small, shaking and scared. A boy of maybe 9 stood protectively in front, fists clenched like he meant to fight Harlan barehanded. 2 girls sat behind him, one wide-eyed with fear, the other, a toddler, half asleep, her cheek resting on what looked like a grain sack. And in the farthest corner, her face turned blindly toward the noise, sat a woman. Her eyes were open but unfocused, her hand stretched instinctively toward her children. "We'll go," she said before he could speak. "Just let the baby rest a minute longer." The boy took a step forward. "Don't touch Em," he warned. "We ain't thieves." Harlan didn't lower the rifle. Not yet. The boy's voice trembled, but there was steel in it. The girl clutched his coat. The baby whimpered again, a weak sound, tired and dry. The woman spoke, once more softly. "We didn't mean to trespass. We've been walking for days. I couldn't see where we were anymore." That's when it hit him. She wasn't just lost. She was blind. The snow hissed against the barn walls like a warning. Harlan's trigger finger stayed steady. He was a man shaped by war and widowhood, a man whose mercy had long frozen into resolve. But something about the curve of her shoulders, the way the children leaned into one another, silent, patient, worn, unlocked a place he'd boarded up years ago. "How long you been here?" he asked. "Since just after dark," the woman replied. "Didn't want to wake no one. Just needed to keep warm." He looked at them again. Their clothes were stiff with frost, and the boys' boots were 2 sizes too big, stuffed with rags. The toddler had no boots at all, only a bit of burlap tied around her feet. He lowered the rifle. "You can stay the night," he said gruffly, "but you make a sound come morning, and the whole town will think I've gone soft." The boy looked to his mother, who nodded, then slowly guided the girls back into the blanket's meager shelter. Harlan turned on his heel, without another word, and stomped back through the storm. Inside the cabin, the fire was low, but not out. He stoked it, then ladled out the last of the beans from the cast-iron pot. His pantry held little more than flour, lard, and coffee, but it would do. He pulled 4 chipped bowls from the shelf, then stopped and cursed under his breath. He was doing it, feeding strangers in the middle of the night. He went back out with the lantern and the food. The boy tensed when he entered, but his eyes went wide at the smell. "Eat," Harlan said. "Won't last you the week, but it'll do for tonight." The boy helped the others. The blind woman reached slowly for the bowl, her fingers trailing along the wood until they touched its rim. She nodded once. "Thank you," she said. He didn't reply. He watched. She ate in small, practiced bites, as if conserving more than just food, perhaps dignity or trust. The boy cleaned his bowl in seconds. The middle girl, 7 maybe, ate more slowly, her eyes never leaving Harlan's face. "You got a name, boy?" he asked. "Tommy." "And your ma?" "Mary Grace." He grunted. "Where's your man?" "Dead," Mary answered flatly. "Mine caved in. New Mexico." A silence stretched between them. Harlan knew that kind of loss. Earth swallowing a life whole. "And you?" she asked, surprising him. "Harlan Boone." The name seemed to mean something. She gave a faint smile. "They say you live out here alone 'cause you once killed a man with your bare hands." He gave no answer. "They also say you saved 3 settlers from drowning in the Platte." Still nothing. Finally, she said, I don't care what you've done. I just want my children to sleep without fear. The toddler had already nodded off in her sister's arms. Tommy sat beside his mother, upright and watchful. Mary rested a hand on his shoulder, guiding him gently down. She turned her sightless gaze toward Harlan and whispered something low, maybe a prayer, maybe a thank you, but he turned and walked out before it reached him. Inside again, Harlan poured coffee and sat at the fire, alone with the ghosts of his own choices. His wife, Clara, had once sung lullabies just like that, soft, almost trembling, the kind that made a man forget the world was hard. She died in the fire that burned down their first cabin. The same fire that took their newborn, too. He'd built this new house by hand. No frills, no risks, no one else, just survival. And now, there were strangers in his barn. The wind screamed outside like it knew something he didn't. He didn't sleep. By morning, the sky was bruised with dawn, and the snow had crusted over. He saddled his mule and headed into town for flour and milk, grumbling the whole way. The general store was quiet, but word traveled fast in these parts. By the time he passed the livery, Sheriff Dobbins was waiting on the boardwalk. Heard you got company, the sheriff said, adjusting his belt. Ain't like you, Boone. Harlan kept walking. Woman with 3 brats? Blind, I heard. She won't last long. You know what the folks'll say if you start housing beggars. I ain't housing anyone, Harlan muttered. Just helping a traveler. Dobbins narrowed his eyes. That kind of help don't sit well here. Folks pay taxes to keep out the drifters. You got any laws against beans and blankets? Not yet. Harlan tipped his hat and walked on. By the time he got back, the barn was quiet. He stepped inside, arms loaded with supplies. Tommy sat up straight. We didn't touch nothing. Just waited like Ma said. Harlan handed him the sack. Sugar, blanket, milk. You'll eat better tonight. Mary's face turned slightly toward him. I can pay, she said. Not in money, but I can sew. Clean. Anything. I don't need help, he said. I didn't ask if you needed it. I offered. He stood in silence for a long moment. Then, you can stay a while. Not long. Just till the storm clears. Tommy's face lit up. The little girl smiled for the first time. Mary bowed her head. Thank you, Mr. Boone. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. I ain't a kind man, he said. Don't mistake this for charity. Mary's voice was soft. I won't. Kindness doesn't shout. Outside, the wind had calmed, but something inside him hadn't. As he walked back toward the cabin, the silence around him no longer felt like peace. It felt like waiting, and for the first time in 12 years, Harlan Boone wasn't sure he wanted to be alone. The snow melted slow that week, leaving behind a ragged earth, muddy, tired, unwilling to forget the storm. Harlan patched the fence near the west field, while Tommy helped stack firewood without being asked. The boy was wiry but stubborn, his hands red and raw from cold. Each time Harlan offered gloves, Tommy shook his head. Mama says if you take more than you earn, you owe double. Mary stayed close to the cabin, sweeping floors, boiling wash water, humming songs no one else seemed to know. Her blindness didn't stop her. If anything, it sharpened her focus. She found corners Harlan hadn't cleaned in years. Ellie followed her everywhere, mimicking every move like a shadow with pigtails. They didn't ask for more than they were given, didn't weep or whine. They just worked, and it began to feel, damn it all, like they belonged. One afternoon, while repairing the lean-to, Harlan caught Mary on the porch with the sun warming her face. She didn't hear him come up. How long were you out there? He asked, not unkind. Long enough to know you don't like company, she replied with a faint smile. And longer to know you're better at it than you pretend. He let out a grunt. You don't have to like us, Mr. Boone, she said gently. But we're grateful. He didn't answer, just looked out toward the tree line where the town road snaked beyond the horizon. Something tightened in his chest. 3 riders approached the ranch the next morning. Dust caked their boots and arrogance filled their voices. Sheriff Dobbins led the trio, flanked by Reverend Cole and Lyle Jennings, a storekeeper too proud for his own good. Dobbins dismounted first. We gave you time, Boone. Now we hear they're still here. I don't see your badge tied to my front gate. This ain't about law. It's about order. You harbor strays, others get ideas. Mary stepped out from the barn, Ellie clutching her skirt. She faced them, unblinking, her eyes open but blind. She's not a stray, Harlan said. She's a mother. These are her children. Cole sneered. And what man did she belong to? Who speaks for her now? Harlan's jaw twitched. I do. That stopped them. Dobbins spit in the dirt. You'll regret this, Boone. Folks don't like their neighbors breaking the line between help and foolishness. You draw your line where you need to, Harlan replied, voice low. Mine's where decency lives. The men left with grumbles and warnings, but the air had shifted. The town would talk, and talk turned to danger quick in these parts. That night, Mary sat silent by the fire, hands folded. You'll be safer away from here, Harlan said. I know a place west. Abandoned mission near Copper Ridge. Still has a roof. I'll take you. Tommy's face fell, but Mary only nodded. I didn't expect to stay, she said. But you gave my children sleep without fear. That's more than most ever have. Leave before Sunday, Harlan muttered. They'll be back, not just with words. He looked at them, Mary calm and still, Tommy brave beyond his years, Ellie clutching her doll made of hay. Something inside him cracked. He'd lost one family to fire. He wasn't about to lose another to cowardice. The rain returned on Saturday night, cruel and heavy. It hammered the roof of Harlan's cabin and turned the trail to Copper Ridge into a winding river of mud and stone. Thunder rolled across the hills like distant gunfire. Inside, Mary wrapped the baby tight to her chest while Tommy and Ellie clutched hands. Harlan watched the storm through the window, jaw clenched. We go now, he said. Tommy blinked. In this, they'll ride at first light, Harlan said. If we wait, they'll catch us. He packed dry biscuits, jerky, 2 canteens. Then he pulled a battered revolver from a drawer and checked the chamber. Mary didn't flinch. She reached for her shawl with steady fingers. They rode out under black skies. Harlan led the mule, Mary and the baby in the saddle, the children bundled in blankets, one strapped behind him, the other held close. Every step was a fight through slick clay and crooked roots. Twice the mule nearly lost its footing. Tommy slipped and bit his lip to stay quiet, but no one turned back. By the time they reached the river, dawn was a pale bruise on the horizon. The water was swollen and wild, rushing like it had a purpose. Harlan tied a rope across the narrowest point between 2 old cottonwoods. I'll go first, then come back for each of you. He crossed chest deep, rope taut in one hand, revolver in the other. The current pulled hard, but he made it. Then Tommy. Then Ellie, shaking and sobbing into his coat. Last was Mary and the baby. Harlan gritted his teeth, helped her down. She stepped into the water without hesitation. Halfway across, the rope snapped. Harlan lunged, catching Mary by the arm just as her foot slipped. The baby cried out. Mary's hand gripped his wrist like iron. Don't let go, she whispered. I won't, he growled and dragged them forward. They collapsed on the far bank, gasping, drenched. Tommy crawled to them, arms around his mother and baby sister. They made for the mission, 2 crumbling stone walls and a roof patched with tin. But it was shelter and it was theirs. Harlan started a fire with damp wood and dry patience. Mary sat beside him, steam rising from her clothes. You should go back, she said softly. The town won't forgive you for this. They already didn't, Harlan muttered. She reached for his hand, found it, held it. Later he rode back alone. The ranch stood quiet. No smoke, no sign of trouble. But when he reached the barn, he saw it, paint slashed across the boards, Traitor, in dripping red letters, and nailed to the door, a child's boot. He didn't flinch, just saddled his mule again and rode west. They wouldn't find her. Not now. Not ever. And if they tried, well, Harlan Boone still remembered how to fight. And this time, he had something worth protecting.